Hello and welcome to the July Art Critique, dear club members. I am a little late this month, so it's already the 7th of August right now while I'm recording this. I'm sorry for being late, but this week was quite busy. So, yeah, let's not talk that much, but get started with our two ongoing club members, Dan and Sirius. Thanks as always, you guys, for submitting your work and being such very loyal Art Critique Club members. So let's have a look at your work and what you could improve, or what I think you could improve this time and this month. Let's go. So let's start with Sirius today. You submitted with this nice piece, very ethereal, very translucent kind of colors. And I think you wanted to hear a little bit about what you could improve on the colors here. I'm just having a look at your comment, and you are happy with the composition, but color-wise you're a little lost and want to make it pop, and you're unsure where to add contrast, yes, and variation as well. Yeah, that's a good point, and I think you have a very correct feeling about this. I guess the contrast and the whole vibe and variation of the palette can be improved in some points, so let's get to that. And I think although you were happy with the composition, I think there's a couple of points where I guess you could have a little bit of improvement as well. I'm going to get to that maybe later if there's time in the end, but I guess I can say a couple of points there as well. So first of all, the colors, yeah, like I mentioned, it's very kind of these kind of ethereal, very light colors. So you use a lot of bright versions of your colors here with these blue, kind of a little bit of purple there, and then you have, of course, I mean, you have your black outlines here, and then you have this dark spot here in the top with this kind of UFO kind of thing, this ship hovering. I like the overall idea of these guys like being let down on the water surface and doing some kind of a job, they kind of harvest, or I don't know what they exactly do, some kind of harvesting these kind of crystals that you have here. So I like this overall composition idea. I think that's really cool, looks really nice. But one thing that of course pops into your eye is that you have this very dark opening of the ship here, which is compared or together with the little small black spots here and there, for example, where you have some black outline fills, you have this very massive thing on top that is also not only a question of color, but also a question of composition in this case, because it makes the composition kind of that you have this dark area kind of pressing down on the rest of the scene. And that's always something I would avoid if you don't want to use it for telling a certain story. I would always try to avoid this because it makes a scene look small. It creates kind of a pressure on the lower parts of a composition, and it really very much has an impact here, while at the same time you have this wide area, this super far away horizon, so you really kind of see the horizon like you watch out on like you're on a beach and watching the water surface. You could, by the way, even give it some kind of what's that called, like the earth surface, like the it's not flat, but it's this lightly rounded surface, so to give this impression of looking really far into the distance. So yeah, and you have that, which is great, and you have this coming down from the top, this very dark element here. So there's an issue. I would try to balance out with yeah, with adding more, being more brave with dark colors here in this area of the ship, because you have, of course, this very light and very transparent vibe here with the colors, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't use some really dark tones as well. I wouldn't be afraid of losing this vibe, this color vibe, because you still have it. You have a lot of water surface here and there. You have these crystals. So be more brave of using, like, for example, some really dark areas here. Just like some dark areas here under her body here, for example, or here in these areas, to give this mothership here on top some kind of counterweight, you know, some kind of here and there, probably. Then you could add, I think it's floating above the surface, right? So you could add a really dark shadow here, for example, even though you don't have a you don't have a very specific light source, because, and this is absolutely correct, because you don't have a very hard shading to create this mood and this kind of little foggy, like watching at the scene through kind of stained glass, a little bit, this effect. I like that, but still you could add a reflection to the water here that is very dark, for example, like that. Not black, but really kind of dark, to add more contrast to the water surface as well. Probably you could even have some areas here where you kind of not see through the water, but where the water reflects something dark, and there you have a better, like, these areas of the image, they balance out each others and it works better together. You can even do that on the crystals, by the way. Of course, these are transparent. For example, this thing here, yes, it is transparent, but it doesn't mean that you can't add kind of a little piece of, like, a little shard here and there that has a darker spot, for example, because the tilt of the spot is so that it reflects something dark. It's not a problem. I think even with crystals, when you draw crystals or glass or something, I think it really lives and vibes from having this heavy contrast of something transparent and very, very lightly tinted, and then some darker areas. So that's that. And also, I think, I mean, you use a lot of different colors here. You have some kind of pink here, and then you have something that looks more, even a little bit yellowish. In fact, it is a very light pink. Sometimes I feel like combined with certain colors, light pink can always get this yellowish character, and I think this is the case here. When you set it against this blue, this light blue, and here the green, suddenly you get this yellowish feeling, which is great because you don't have too many colors, but you give an impression. You give the eye an impression of yellow, but there is no yellow, in fact, which is, in my opinion, is a great strategy to not use too many different colors, but still have a certain variation in it. So these, if you take these, I would try to really go a bit, maybe a little bit more saturated and a little darker here. So take this, try something like this. That's a bit muddy, but maybe something like this. Go with this, and well, that's different. That's similar to this one here, probably, but you know. So you have the focus very much on this vessel, this little ship that these guys are sitting in. You have it here a little bit, so you have some stronger colors here already. So I would go and distribute that over this whole part here a little bit more, so you create more focus on this part and draw attention away from this one here, this on the top. So because this is an element, I would say, the viewer should probably see at the second side. The first side goes here, there. The characters, what they do, and then there's this ship, this mothership that is connected to it, and what's the story there, and yeah, I think that would help a lot. So now I made my very own piece of art out of yours with all these sketches in it. Let me just quickly take 1 or 2 minutes to quickly say something about the composition, just as a little bonus on top. What I meant before was that I feel the composition is really cool. I like what you did so far. I like that you have this connection from the top to the center part, that you have this wide view to the horizon. And when I look at this area here where the action happens, I feel like the elements, like the crystals here, these are distributed over the canvas kind of evenly, in an evenly manner, you know. So I think probably you wanted to draw one additional one here, and it looks like it's arranged too much, so it's staged a little bit too much. It doesn't look random. I would try to give it a more a more random look. For example, here's the concentration of these, like let them overlap a little bit, so they don't overlap that much. Let them overlap a little bit here, and then kind of get rid of this, and then add some more here, and then probably in the back some more. So usually I think with these kind of natural elements, these organic looking elements, it is more convincing and feels more real if you distribute these over the canvas in a more random way. So I would try that, because that will add more tension to the image and make it look more interesting. And especially the overlaps are important. I mean, you're doing it here, which is great, with the tentacles or whatever this is, going over the boat. You could probably even add one here that's kind of reaching into the boat or so. So there is more dynamic, more action, without there being more action in terms of that the poses of the characters are kind of more in motion or so, but only through overlaying elements and adding more tension to the composition. So that's what I had in mind there. I think this is on a good way, and I'm pretty confident that if you go a little extra mile on this and optimize these points, you will have a really cool illustration, because I think the storytelling is nice. And from your comment, it sounded like you were a little bit you didn't know where to go with this, and you were a little bit desperate to if this was worth putting your time into. And I would say yes. So my honest opinion is yes, try to put this on even another level, and you have a really nice piece of art there. So let's head over to Dan, and you have been posting this piece to, I think, to the showcase, right? And I gave you very short feedback about this, telling you that you should have an eye on separating the characters from the background more by making clearer layers, and the colors itself have a much more brilliant vibe now. Well done. Yes, very well done. I think you took my feedback and improved your coloring very much. So the whole, like the nature, you are using a lot of like greens in your artworks all the time, so at least from what I saw so far, and it looks much more lush, more vibrant, and it has a good feeling to it, and I think you're in a very good way there. Please don't improve too much, so you don't need my art critique anymore. But no, that's really a nice improvement. And then you asked me to specify my critique about the layering a little bit more and separating the characters, and yeah, we can do that, of course. So what I thought, or what I had in mind when I gave you that comment, is that you have these characters here, these three, this bird, or I guess it's an owl. And when I looked at this, I felt like it was a bit hard to make out these characters, even though you had, you were totally on the correct path of separating them through colors. So you have these brownish, orange kind of colors here. For example, here in the hair, and these browns here, like that. And then you have the green of the background of the trees, of the vegetation there. And this is the strategy of doing so is totally correct and fine, because if we see, if we divide this illustration into layers, into kind of layers from close to distant, we have very much the foreground here. There's some elements in the foreground, and then we have a middle ground, including the characters here, like that. And then we have a background that is the trees, and also, yeah, the background is kind of divided into these trees here. And then we have also kind of the background number 2, the layer 3.2, which is here, these bushes in the background, and then the sky, and this little part here. And even though you did right with separating them through the coloring, it's kind of hard to separate the middle ground and the background here. And of course, part of it is that the characters are very small, so which is fine. This is really tricky, because I think the character sizing is good, because telling the story through looking at them riding into these forest or so, probably following the little the little sign here with the skull, probably, I don't know, raiding a bandits camp or so. I don't know what the story here is, but I like that we have this kind of spectator's view, that through these bushes here, even though I think the foreground bushes here are a bit large and a bit flat, so that's just on the side. Another feedback I can give you, I think the shape is a little bit weird here, because you have this kind of edge quite straight, so I would try to make it look a little bit more organic, like for example, like this, and then you don't have this very hard edge here. So we kind of look from behind this foreground, this bush, like we peek around and see these guys going into the forest, and I can even see the motion, and that they're kind of fast because of the smoke here, and the style of the running is very fast, and the wheel is this kind of weird kind of bike. It looks like it's moving fast, so you did really well there. So yeah, that works nicely. But the point of entry into the forest kind of is difficult in terms of the contrast between the details you have here. So you have these very detailed characters, which is nice, but you also have a lot of details here in the what's that called? Not a trunk, right? Yeah. Sometimes I'm just losing English vocabulary from time to time. So the trunk here has a lot of details. The lighting here, the light hitting the trunk adds details. Then yeah, you have a lot of lines in there, and this interferes a little with the characters, and also not only the details but also the colors, of course, because you have the same kind of saturation, the same brightness, and not enough contrast probably between the characters and the trees, even though you have, of course, used other colors with these browns and reds and oranges I mentioned. So if we probably just quickly turn this into black and white, you see that we have dark areas here, and of course here in the foreground a little bit, but then here the similarity of the brightness is very high. So where you do it right is here in this part, for example, or here, but here the trunk, the trees, the owl here compared to the trees, it's very similar. And I think we should need, or you should need, and we can try to find strategies to avoid this. So the characters, characters are the main part of the image, right? And to make these pop out even more. And this could be either to get rid of the trunks here. So for example, this trunk, move it to the right so you don't have it interfering with the wheel here. Same with this one here. This one here is probably okay, I think, but yeah, so that would be the strategy first. Of course, it's quite a challenge, right? You gave me quite a quite a difficult task here to solve this, and it will be kind of a decision for you to make what you want to do, because this is one strategy. Another one would be to change the coloring of the trees, or rearranging the trees even more. For example, I think this part here is fine. And then you could maybe make use of the rule of thirds. So we have 2/3 here, we have 1/3 here. And you did this kind of the other way around, because you have the area of the forest starting here. You could also let it start here and let it fade out a bit. So some distant trees, maybe even like the one that you have here. And this kind of way of coloring, maybe some distant trees fading out, so that the forest is fading out. Some bushes on the ground are fine, I guess. And then you have an area of sky here. This would help the owl very much, by the way. So if we take the owl and put it here, for example, it would have a nice, much better focus and nice contrast compared to the background. And I think it would make it pop out very much. So that's an option you could try. And you could also try to leave the trees as they are and just draw back the saturation a little bit, draw back the brightness a little bit, so you have this distance effect between the foreground and the background. But that's really that's up to you. There's different ways of getting there, I guess, but I'm afraid there's no kind of quick way of doing it. I'm just doing the composition once again here just to try. So if we have the trees here, example, maybe you could add some more foreground here, even with like a branch going in there like this. And then we have the characters here. And then kind of the forest kind of, maybe it could even reach into the sky here a little bit. So kind of the forest really comes out, has a nice dynamic shape. And then we have the characters here just entering the forest area. Maybe that's a nice idea. Maybe some foreground even here in the upper part. But that's really up to you. That's not a must, of course. So maybe like that. That would work. Yeah. But it's not easy. It's really, we're getting into the very fine, great details, the very nuances here to improve your art. And there's like these little steps you can make in the end have still a huge impact, you know. But the drawing style is great. You're in a great way with the coloring, and I'm really looking forward to see your next work. So I hope this, even though it wasn't extremely specific this time, I hope this gave you a nice impression of like my way of thinking of building these distance layers, because I think that's a very, very central part of my work as well. Maybe for just to close this, I can show you another example of, I just had this in mind while I was speaking, because I have here a very consistent color palette, so very, very reduced palette that is only working with a lot of red, orange, and a little bit of like purplish blue, but this also always has this kind of drive, this direction into the red areas. And I think this is probably a nice example to study, because you see I even changed the color of the outlines here very much. So if you compare the outlines here, we have this dark purple here, and then we have, for these outlines, we have this. And then if you look at these outlines here, these are really kind of, the contrast between the outlines and the fill is very low. To have this looking into the distance effect, this kind of, there's particles in the air that are between the foreground and the middle ground and the background that disturb your view, and the more distance you have, the higher distance you have, the less contrast. And I had to do this here very, very much, because otherwise the separation between the foreground and the car and the character and these areas that are also really detailed wouldn't have been working that much. So maybe that's even also a strategy you could try. So changing the outline colors and see what the difference is, and see how it changes the placement and kind of the focus on the characters. All right, guys, thanks very much for tuning in. And thanks very much, Sirius and Dan, of course, for submitting your work. Like I mentioned in the beginning, it's nice to have you back every month. It's really a pleasure to do that with you. And if anyone here wants to have an art critique on their own and wants my 10 to 15 minutes of opinion on their work, so if you're interested, head over to my Patreon. It's linked in the comments, and book the Art Critique Club by subscribing to the Plastic Gold membership, and you can submit your work until end of August. Probably this time I will be in time again and do the critique by end of August. And yeah, I'd be glad to have you in here and give you some feedback. Whatever level of artist you are, if you're a starter, if you have your style but want to develop your style even more specifically, if you want to know how to find your color palette for your artworks, whatever you want to know, just subscribe and submit, and we'll get you there. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time. Bye bye.